How's it going, guys? I'm Will Robinson from Robinson's Auto Tools and Time.com. I'll be throwing up a little video demonstration for Brian's Mobile One today. He has a little contest going on fabricated tools and things that may have helped you get out of a pinch. I have a few I'd like to demonstrate, not just for the competition, but these tools have served me well, so I'd like to demonstrate them for you in hopes that they may do the same for you. So without further ado, this first contraption I'd like to show you was a simple jig I made for changing universal joints. It's made out of 1/2 inch flat stock, 1/2 inch by 2.5, 5 inches tall, and 2.5 inside spread. How this works is pretty simple. I'll give you a quick demonstration. Okay guys, for this demonstration I'm going to be using my hydraulic press. I usually use my arbor press. However, there's tons of ways to change U-joints. If I was on the side of the road or in the woods, I could replace this using a block of wood and a hammer. There's lots of methods. However, since I have this equipment, I'm going to utilize it. So using a press, you want to use extreme caution, because if you press this out the wrong way, you're going to bend the ears. Like if I were to take my press and press it out like this and push down on that top cup to press out the whole joint, what will most likely happen is I'll bend this ear. This ear will tweak, and then when you put the new joint in, you're going to have problems and it's going to throw your shaft out of balance. So what you got to do is, like I mentioned, you need a pressing cup or a socket or something that your cup will fit in nice. And then you want to get it centered. So when you press this out, it goes down inside the cup goes down inside your pressing cup or your socket or whatever you're using. That's going to be a nice firm pressing surface for this bottom ear. That's when the cradle comes in. This will simply come up and press down on a U-joint. What that'll do is press just that lower cup out. The top cup will remain in place. But however, I'm not putting any strain on that top ear. The lower ear is supported by the lower cup. So everything will press out nice and straight without bending the ear. Let's give it a shot. Simple design, but yet effective. Okay, this next set of tools I like to demonstrate were made for those tight spots where you can't get a regular ratchet in there and socket because you just don't have the clearance. These are what I'd call low profile socket wrenches. As you can see, it's a 3/16 flat stock by 1 inch, and I made them a couple different lengths, starting with 1/4 inch. That's 1/4 inch key stock. I made them so they fit tight, so they stay on. But as you can see, you get into some tight spots. Nice low profile. I made this set 1/4 inch, 3/8. As you can see, different offsets. Put a different key, little offset on each side. However, you don't need to do that. And like I mentioned, I made them so they fit nice and tight to where they're not going to fall off and get you down where you need to go. All the way up to the 1/2 inch drive. 3/8 key stock, drilled it all the way through and plug welded it from the back side. That way it kept it low profile. Same thing with the 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch by 1 inch flat stock. Make it your desired length with 1/2 inch key stock, drilled and plug welded. This here is one of my more advanced specialty tool sets. If you follow my videos recently, you see me demonstrate this set on a Volvo S-70 head job. What this is for locking cams in place on 2-piece cylinder heads like the Volvos. And so you have dual overhead cams, You got to lock them in place for the variable timing. So these mechanisms here go into the slots in the back of the cam. Now you get a clear picture on how this device works. I pretty much took a piece of flat stock and I milled a notch on both sides. Then I machined this piece of round stock to fit in and be able to adjust it. I machined this side of it to lock into the cam. Then you simply put both of them into the cam notches, and then you lock it in place, and that will keep the cams from spinning in either direction when you compress the cams. And plus, when you're aligning the timing marks, this keeps the cams locked in place. Now, different makes and models use different size bolts and threads in the back of the cams. This here is particularly for the Volvo S-70. So you go in from the back side. Like so. That screws into the back side of the cam. And once they're both locked in place on both sides, it prevents the cams from spinning while you compress the top portion of the head. The reason this is because when you compress these cylinder heads, you got to compress the springs as well, and it tends to want to turn the cams, and this will prevent that from happening. Like I mentioned, different makes, different sizes. So what I did, instead of making different size locking bars, I simply took different bolts, cut them, drilled them, tapped them. And what that allowed me to do is simply quickly retrofit for whatever make and model, and then you lock them in place and tighten them up. And as you can see, I got a few different sizes. So that covered locking the cams in time. Then we had to go about finding a way to compress the upper portion of the cylinder head. And that leads me to this portion of the set. What I did here was took two of the old spark plugs, knocked the centers out, took a piece of what they call Acme thread. You could simply use all thread. However, I chose the Acme thread because it's much heavier. Tapered the ends, squared them up, then welded them around the perimeter, and I made a matching set. And that leads me to this portion of the set. This started out as a piece of 3/16 aluminum flat, bent it into the shape you see. There wasn't really any reason for the height. However, you can see I chose 1.5 inch sides, 2.5 wide, and the length was to spread across the upper portion of the valve cover, which was 11 inches. I found worked great. Okay, so once we had that portion of the set made, I wanted to find a nice way to clamp it down to where I could watch what I was doing with little effort in clamping. So that's when we decided on the giant wing nut style. It's pretty much a piece of 1/4 inch flat. Took it, bent it into the shape. There was no rocket science behind it. Took the matching Acme nut, welded it in the center, drilled it, and made these giant wing nuts. So this would simply be screwed into the spark plug hole. This would clamp down on the upper portion. And then you would simply clamp it down with these giant wing nuts. Now the reason you need these is because you got to compress the springs. That's why you got to lock these cams in place.